Now, Governor Waltz says, I knew nothing about this, man. It's news to me. And he said, in fact, I'm taking some bold steps. He said, at first, I'm not going to run for a third term. I guess he needs more time. Hope he uses the time to prepare his defense, because he's got a lot to defend here. He knew what was going on.
You know, when you argue with a fool, you just prove there are two. And I consider Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Presley, I think is her name. They call themselves the Squad. I consider them to be fools. They hate America. They think America was wicked in its...
There's a saying in politics that never seems to age: when the truth shows up softly, the dishonest act like no one rang the doorbell. So pour yourself a drink, get comfortable, and pay attention, because what comes next explains exactly why the people in Washington are counting on your distraction. Senator John Kennedy just broke an unspoken rule. He dropped the script. No trendy slogans, no rehearsed sensitivity, no manufactured anger, just plain talk and facts that don't sit comfortably. And before we get into it, do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, and stick around to the end, because what you're about to see exposes how authority, fear, and identity-driven politics work together to mislead the people footing the bill. Right, let's dive in.
One of the lawyers representing one of the thieves in this case said many of the people, this was their excuse, said many of the people involved in the stealing thought that the state was okay with it. That's what he said. Here's his quote. No one was doing anything about the red flags. Red flags were everywhere. Nobody in state government, he said, was doing anything about the red flags. It was like someone was stealing money from the cookie jar and they kept refilling it. The state knew. And at one point, Governor Waltz and some of his agencies said, whoa, you know, maybe we ought to put a stop to this. And they backed off. They said no more money for a while. Well, fresh hell broke loose. You know what happened? The largest, most powerful, fictitious company, run mostly by people of Somali ancestry, sent an email to the Minnesota state government. And they said that the state agency that was failing to promptly approve new applications and give us new money from, quote, minority-owned businesses, close quote, was going to result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news. If you don't give us our money, we're going to call you racist. They did it. It's all come out in evidence at trial. In fact, a lady by the name of Kesa Megan, she's one of the good guys. She is a Somali American who used to work as a fraud investigator in the Attorney General's office, who, by the way, was just as involved as Governor Waltz in turning a blind eye to all this. She says, and she said it in the newspaper, she said that elected officials, and particularly those who are part of the state's Democratic-led administration, were reluctant to take more assertive action in response to the allegations. Why? Here's her quote. There is a perception that forcefully tackling this issue might cause political backlash from the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc for Democrats. And she is among the few among many prominent figures in the Somali community who is speaking out.
Governor Tim Walz's response was simple: I didn't know. This is the first I'm hearing of it. That's the entire defense. According to him, a sprawling fraud scheme, worth hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, operated through state agencies right under his administration, and he somehow never noticed. Senator John Kennedy wasn't convinced. And honestly, you shouldn't be either. Kennedy began by walking through the facts. During the trial, even a lawyer representing the people who stole the money admitted something shocking. Many of the perpetrators believed the state government was aware of what was happening, and didn't care. Why would they think that? Because warning signs were everywhere, yet the state kept doing nothing. No investigations. No shutdown. Just silence. Kennedy didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. It was like watching someone repeatedly take cookies from the jar while the state kept refilling it without asking questions. At one point, Walz's administration briefly considered cutting off the funds. That's when chaos erupted. A so-called non-profit, later revealed to be completely fraudulent, sent an email threatening the state. Not with lawsuits. Not with policy arguments. But with accusations of racism if the money stopped. Media pressure. Public outrage. Political pain, and it worked. The payments continued. That isn't conjecture, it came out in court. Kennedy then highlighted the role of Kaysa Megan, a Somali-American fraud investigator who actually tried to stop the scheme. She went public and explained why officials hesitated. They were afraid of political consequences from the Somali community, a crucial democratic voting bloc. Let that sink in. The state didn't simply fail to act, it chose not to, because enforcing the law might have cost votes. That's not incompetence. That's fear. From there, Kennedy widened the lens. He tied this mentality to what he sees across the political establishment, particularly figures like Ilhan Omar, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley. His words were blunt. He said they despise America, not as a joke, but as a serious criticism. They describe the country as fundamentally evil, attack its institutions, yet continue to benefit from the power and protection those same institutions provide. Kennedy's argument was straightforward: you can't repair something you believe is irredeemable. If you think the foundation is corrupt, you're not trying to fix it, you're trying to tear it down. And that worldview, where optics matter more than reality and feelings override facts, is exactly how Minnesota ended up being looted. Walz didn't stop the fraud because stopping it risked negative press. He didn't intervene because someone might cry racism. Instead, criminals siphoned off money meant to feed children. That isn't empathy. That's negligence. Ignorance doesn't excuse a governor. If he truly didn't know, then he failed at his most basic responsibility. And if he did know and stayed quiet, that's even more damning. Either way, the taxpayers paid the price. Senator Kennedy said what most of the media wouldn't. He exposed a system where fear is rewarded, accountability is avoided, and truth collapses the moment a bad headline is threatened. This isn't about cruelty, it's about honesty. So what do you think? Do you believe Governor Waltz really had no idea? Or did he know and decide it was safer to look the other way? Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.